What you're about to hear is a tale that shakes the core of the Sister Wives world. A story built on secrecy, betrayal, and a courtroom showdown, so intense it threatens to topple the Brown family empire. This is about a secret so carefully hidden it took years of heartache, broken relationships, and the courage of two women who refused silence to finally bring it to light. Forget all you ever assumed about the finances of the family, about the supposed communal family pot, and about the patriarch who claimed to lead with patriarchal justice. Today we bring you the decision that shook the reality television world. A judge has mandated Kody Brown to shell out $1.3 million. This isn't a storyline designed to get ratings. It is the stunning aftermath of an underground legal battle. And we've revealed secret information TLC never meant you to see. The evidence is irrefutable. Hidden contracts have surfaced. The financial deception that supported one wife's lifestyle while leaving others behind is now part of the public record. For more than a decade, fans watched the Browns wrestle with plural marriage on screen. But the real drama, the one that mattered most, was unfolding away from cameras. Through secret deals and contracts that other wives never knew existed. This is the tale of Christine and Janelle Brown, two women who dedicated decades to a man and a family finally receiving justice. This is the tale of a $1.3 million verdict that rewrites history. If you want to be first in line when these bombshell developments and in-depths come your way, which you won't find anywhere else, then subscribe now. Press that like button so the algorithm is aware reality. Recap is worth highlighting. And don't forget the notification bell. The aftereffects of this decision are just getting started, and we will be tracking every update. You don't want to miss what is next. Now, let's put it into context. To really get the enormity of this $1.3 million ruling, you have to get how deep the reported duplicity goes. For years, Kody Brown promoted a veil of togetherness. One family, one bank account, the notorious family pot. All the dollars from the show and the side hustles allegedly went into a common fund controlled by Kody to be split evenly in the best interests of all. It was the cornerstone of their plural family system. It rested on trust. And by evidence presented in a Flagstaff courtroom, it was all a deception. Insiders in close proximity to production and family sources indicate that the fissures in this illusion developed long before fans witnessed the family fracture on television. The relocation from Las Vegas to Flagstaff, pressured primarily by Kody and his fourth wife, Robyn, was the tipping point. It depleted resources, necessitated costly rentals, and left their Coyote Pass utopia in shambles, while Janelle was stuck dwelling in an RV on naked land, and Christine became more and more marginalized in a house she didn't own. A completely different economic reality was supposedly being constructed behind closed doors. The lawsuit by Christine and Janelle wasn't simply concerning the pain of spiritual divorces. It was a product of necessity and bitter understanding. As they set about unwinding their lives from Kody, they started getting tough questions. Where did all of the money go after being on a hit television show for over a decade? How was the family's finances so weak? Why did Janelle, the one who served as the family's accountant, have so little to begin anew with? Why did Christine have to fight just to cover her Utah house? Those questions pulled them into a rabbit hole, and what they uncovered, according to court records we've reviewed, was a carefully crafted system of financial inequality. At the center of Christine and Janelle's legal complaint were two serious accusations: breach of fiduciary duty and fraudulent misrepresentation. In even simpler words, they accused Kody of breaching his role as the family's collective money manager by clandestinely taking funds for himself and Robyn, and they said they had proof. The bombshell of their case was the revelation of secret contracts. Kody Brown, our sources say, supposedly in league with Robyn, had been signing side deals with TLC for years. These weren't the usual family contracts the wives were aware of. These were side deals, production paychecks, retention payments, and appearance fees, paid straight into an account that only Cody and Robyn could access. Imagine the courtroom when Christine and Janelle's attorneys brought forth this evidence. They told us they had screenshots of leaked provisions with ominous names, such as patriarchal principal rider and key talent continuity bonus. These provisions purportedly guaranteed additional payments to Kody as the featured figure in the show, with additional bonuses associated with Robyn's involvement as his legal wife. From the network's perspective, the rationale was obvious. Cody and Robyn were deemed necessary to the life of the show as the other marriages disintegrated. Instead of being up front and investing that money into the family coffers, something that had always been the understanding, Cody is alleged to have channeled it into a secret fund. The proof didn't end with contracts. The lawyers apparently produced bank statements and check copies from Discovery Communications written directly to Kody Brown, signed with both his and Robyn's signatures. There were wire transfers, deposits, and an unambiguous paper trail. While the family publicly fretted over land payments, mortgages, and rentals, this secret account was supposedly used for personal indulgences. Sources indicate that credit card charges associated with the account reveal lavish shopping, jewelry purchases, and down payments on luxury vehicles, a life far removed from the image of shared sacrifice the Browns presented on television. Remember all those moments of Kody complaining about the family's money, the arguments over Coyote Pass, Janelle's anguish over her financial future. It was smoke and mirrors, according to allegations in court. Kody wasn't just messing around with the family funds, he was deliberately diverting them into his and Robyn's life. The family's pot wasn't just draining, it had a secret pipeline running directly into Robyn's hands. Kody's defense, as reported, was as flippant as his television persona. His attorneys maintained this was a family matter, not a business arrangement. They asserted that as patriarch, Kody had the right to make executive decisions regarding finances. They portrayed Christine and Janelle as resentful ex-wives venting after failed relationships. They maintained that any additional money was being saved for the family's future, a future that Kody had sole prerogative to dictate. But that defense fell apart under the pressure of evidence. The judge, a plain-spoken woman in Coconino County, was unimpressed by Kody's patriarchal explanations. The case came down to a simple fact: the Browns were, for years, a single economic entity. They appeared to TLC, to the IRS, and to the world as a single partnership. All the money from the show belonged to that partnership. By establishing a hidden stream of funds that only he and Robyn enjoyed, Kody didn't only betray trust, he broke his legal obligation to the other wives. The decision handed down in that court was nothing less than an outright repudiation of Kody's philosophy. The judge determined that the proof of financial impropriety was clear and convincing. She determined that Kody had systematically concealed assets and income from his spiritual wives, who, for all intents and purposes, were his business partners in the sister wives' business. And she didn't just stop short at simply commanding him to return the money they were able to demonstrate was drained off. She went on to calculate years of underpaid work from Christine and Janelle, then tacked on punitive damages for the intentional nature of the deception. The court's ultimate order, $1.3 million in restitution, divided evenly, $650,000 apiece to Christine Brown and Janelle Brown. This wasn't merely reimbursement for hidden bonuses. It was the court's recognition, too, of the financial damage Kody had done. It was a moment of uncontestable vindication. Courthouse drawings documented it beautifully. Kody, with his slack jaw and red face, crushed, looking Robyn sobbing next to him. And directly across the courtroom, Christine and Janelle embracing, sobs of joy streaming down their faces. They hadn't won a lawsuit. They had reclaimed their reality. The fallout was equally contentious. Witnesses recounted Kody charging out of the courthouse, refusing to speak to the clump of local reporters gathered outside. He was heard yelling at his lawyer, furiously demanding appeals and injustice. The mask of confident patriarch had slipped, replaced by a visibly humiliated man dragged into accountability in a manner he never thought possible. Christine and Janelle, on the other hand, left moments later, serenely firm. They released a brief statement thanking their attorneys and being relieved that the truth was finally out. Janelle mentioned ensuring her future and stability for her children. Christine, with her voice shaking with emotion, merely stated, "Today we were finally seen. We were finally heard." This ruling wasn't merely about redistributing funds. It colored the entire narrative of the show is back half. Any argument over money, any sobbing episode of feeling underappreciated, now has a sinister undertone. Christine and Janelle weren't merely emotionally deprived. They were being systematically disenfranchised financially. The family power imbalance wasn't emotional only, it was financial. Kody's control wasn't merely patriarchal, it was predatory. And now comes the $1.3 million question. Where will Kody find the money? The most obvious answer is Coyote Pass. Once meant to symbolize the family's united future, the land will likely have to be divided and sold to satisfy the judgment. That sale could spark yet another round of disputes with the remaining family members. What happens to Meri's interest? What about Robyn's? The family compound dream isn't just lost. It might have to be sold off to cover Kody's supposed misbehavior. And then there is TLC. The network's name came up again and again in the evidence, their contracts, their checks, their clauses. Can they still stand behind Kody, or will they distance themselves from a man officially found guilty of financial misbehavior against his co-stars? The future of Sister Wives hangs in the balance. Might we not see a new show emerge from the ashes, focusing on Christine and Janelle as they establish independent lives from the means they are finally entitled to? It is not beyond the realm of possibility. This is bigger than a court case. It is a bombshell announcement that overwrites everything fans believed they knew. A tale of greed and cover-up, culminating in the victory of two women who stood, spoke out, and fought back. The court has made its ruling, but the court of public opinion is only just starting to deliver its verdict. And here at Reality Recap, we'll be tracking every detail and analyzing each ripple effect. Kody Brown may have believed his secrets would remain buried, but as with any hidden account, the truth has a way of compounding until it can't be ignored. Now, let's dive deeper into how this alleged deception was carried out. The sheer boldness of this scheme, as described by our sources, is almost hard to believe. This was not Kody snatching a little here and there in secret. It was a deliberate, multi-year scheme to create a financial castle for himself and Robyn. A castle made of lies as mortar and deception as stone, while the rest of the family struggled on the outside. Sources indicate the so-called patriarchal principal rider was one of these clandestine deals, purportedly brought in when the Browns moved to Las Vegas. In an explanation given to TLC for this, one source close to the original offer claims the reason presented was that as the family grew and relationships became more complex, the network had to gain stability by insulating its linchpin, Kody. He was marketed as the center of the wheel, and the wives as spokes. This rider provided Kody with a leadership bonus per season, a six-figure payment, entirely outside of the family's core contract. The worst part, those payments were made directly to Kody Brown himself, and not to Brown Entertainment LLC, the family production company that typically saw TLC dollars. That was the initial breach, the establishment of a secret revenue stream that circumvented the family pot entirely, and it supposedly continued to escalate. With Robyn's power growing and Kody's relationships with his other wives crumbling, additional clauses started showing up in subsequent contracts. This was dubbed the key talent continuity bonus. More disturbingly, this provision rewarded Kody for keeping his lawful wife, Robyn, on board. In other words, for as long as Robyn remained on the show, Kody was getting an increasing bonus. This provided a volatile financial incentive. Robyn's presence wasn't only emotionally important, it was financially critical. Her contribution to the show translated into more dollars in Kody's personal account. Consider the implications. Each time Kody put Robyn's needs first, paid more attention to her children, or spent the majority of his time at her home, it wasn't always about favoritism or love. If the accusations are true, it was an investment move. He was guarding his investment. With this in mind, Christine, Janelle, and Meri weren't just wives. They were downs in his portfolio, and Robyn was the blue chip stock that promised him steady returns. Based on reports, Christine and Janelle's lawyers set out this pattern with accuracy. They showed a timeline. On one axis, dates of Kody and Robyn's high-ticket purchases, high-end jewelry, the significant down payment on Robyn's massive Flagstaff rental, and even the My Sister Wife's Closet enterprise that devoured hundreds of thousands before it imploded. On the other axis, dates of clandestine TLC bonus payments. The symmetry was undeniable. Some huge wire transfer would arrive, and within weeks, the big purchases would appear from the account of Kody and Robyn alone. Perhaps the most shocking point of the trial was when Janelle herself testified. She had been painted for years as the family's down-to-earth money manager, the budget balancer, the bill payer. She testified to devastating effect. She revealed under oath that she only ever had access to the family's core account, the so-called family pot. She could watch the initial TLC payments come in and then see the household bills sweep them away. She explained to the court how she had constructed budgets and financial plans each year, using that established income, always discovering them strained to the limit. She recounted her puzzlement and growing frustration as to why they never managed to be more than even, why constructing on Coyote Pass never remained an option. And then, her voice cracking, Janelle confessed what she had assumed all along. "I thought I was failing." Janelle informed the court that she had believed for years that the issue was herself. "I thought I was the one who couldn't make the numbers work," she explained. Unbeknownst to her, however, the game had actually been rigged right from the beginning. Significant amounts of the revenues were kept out of the books that she was privy to. She explained how Kody consistently dismissed her suggestions on finances, claiming there was never any money for ventures the other wives desired, and yet there always seemed to be money for Robyn's latest demand. Her testimony is said to have concluded with her making the judge lock eyes. "He didn't betray me just as a wife. He betrayed my trust as his business partner. He led me to think I was incompetent, when in fact he had been stacking the deck against me all along." Christine's time on the stand was equally devastating, although her emphasis was on fairness and broken promises of their family's agreement. She discussed the early years of holding low-paying jobs and saving every penny to sustain the household, while Kody worked his career. She testified about the principle of their faith, that all burdens and blessings were to be equally shared. In tears, Christine told how she had put the proceeds from selling her Las Vegas house, legally earned money, into the family kitty to be used as a down payment on Coyote Pass, thinking she was investing in their future together. Then the lawyers dropped bombshell news. Barely months after Christine put her life savings into the kitty, a key talent continuity bonus for almost the same figure was deposited into Cody and Robyn's secret account. The inference was nauseating. Christine's sacrifice purchased the family property, whereas the secret windfall earned from her involvement in the program went directly to support Cody and Robyn's personal way of life. When Kody lawyers cross-examined the women, their attempts allegedly faltered. They attempted to depict Christine as resentful by referencing her public disparagement of Kody and her relocation from Flagstaff. They depicted Janelle's RV living as a conscious choice for freedom rather than proof of financial hardship. But the women stood their ground. Christine described quietly that departing was the natural consequence of decades of emotional and financial abandonment. Abandonment that she now comprehended in all its aching completeness. Janelle reacted tersely. "I would have liked to have been constructing a house with my family on a property we all owned. On money I believed we all had. The RV wasn't a decision. It was the last resort left for me in a system that had rendered me invisible." And then there was the moment everyone had been waiting for, Kody himself on the stand. The mood in the courtroom was charged. Sources report that he was full of righteous indignation. He didn't deny the side contracts or the secret account. What he attempted to do was justify them. Kody went on lengthy monologues talking about being the leader and president of the family company. He spoke using business-sounding jargon, such as executive pay and long-term strategic reserves. He insisted that his wives were not financially smart and said he was safeguarding family resources from their emotional expenditures. But under cross-examination, his defenses were short-lived. When he was asked why, if the money was for everyone, the account was held in his and Robyn's names only. He stuttered, "She is my legal wife. It is for legal protection." When asked why he had never told anyone about the bonus payments, his arrogance was exposed. "I am the head of this family. I don't have to tell my subordinates about my executive decisions." That one word, subordinates, apparently chilled the room. It was a stunning revelation of how he actually saw the women he referred to as his wives. Even the judge was caught making a calculated note as he uttered the word. The attorney then drilled down to details: a Hawaiian vacation for Kody and Robyn alone, a down payment on a new vehicle that only Robyn used, thousands invested in inventory for Robyn's unsuccessful jewelry business. Each Kody made weak excuses for, labeling them busyness expenses or family brand investments. But the trend was clear, and his believability fell with each response. The final and most highly expected witness was Robyn Brown. Her account, in the words of those inside the courtroom, was an exercise in evasion. weaponized tears, as her detractors describe it. She asserted she did not know anything about contract specifics, portraying herself as a good wife who merely signed whatever documents Kody put in front of her. Sobbing, she testified she thought all the money was for everyone in the family, and she never meant to do anything wrong. "I just wanted a family. I just wanted my sister wives to be happy," she said. But the defense attorney took her story apart, detail by detail. They produced emails between Robyn and her private accountant in which she had asked specifically about whether the tax implications of TLC bonus money could be avoided. They showed text messages between her and Kody, plotting ways to hide purchases from the secret account as business expenses. And lastly, in a blow that knocked the wind out of everyone, they produced a notarized operating agreement from My Sister Wife's Closet launch. Written by Robyn herself, it included only Kody and Robyn as equity partners, and stipulated that startup capital would be derived from non-familial private investment sources. That capital was directly traceable to the secret TLC bonus account. It was conclusive evidence. Robyn was no mere innocent bystander, but an active partner in fencing family funds. Her crying suddenly appeared less tears of sadness than annoyance at having been caught. In closing arguments, the attorney for Christine and Janelle got to the point. "This isn't about a failed plural marriage," he told the judge. "It is about a failed business partnership. Millions were made, and two of the partners were systematically defrauded by the managing partner." He implored the judge not only to return the stolen money, but to send a strong message that this type of betrayal would not be accepted. Kody's lawyer tried one last time to get the case dismissed, labeling it as merely a family feud. He contended that it was not proper to use principles of business on a spiritual family, and that the wives had always understood what they were getting themselves into under a patriarchal system. But the judge would not be swayed. The secret agreements, the concealed accounts, the trail of expenses, and Kody's own condescending testimony had sealed the verdict. The $1.3 million verdict was not merely a financial sanction. It was a moral condemnation of Kody's leadership and the price of his betrayal. For Christine and Janelle, it was the final symphony of justice, and the backlash is just getting started. Lawyers maintain that Christine and Janelle's attorneys are already filing liens against Kody's property. His most prized and most symbolic property is his interest in the Flagstaff land at Coyote Pass. That property, which was the linchpin of his vision for a polygamous dynasty, now occupies the bullseye of his implosion. The $1.3 million award isn't something he can put off or negotiate. It is enforceable. And now that his name is on the deeds, his share of Coyote Pass is up for grabs. What happens next has a technical legal name: a partition sale. When co-owners fail to agree on disposal of jointly held property, the court may compel a partition sale, putting it on the market and dividing up the proceeds. Here, the judge may order Kody's interest in Coyote Pass sold to satisfy the $1.3 million judgment against him to Christine and Janelle. Imagine the scene: court-appointed appraisers walking across the arid acres, the same land Kody once dreamed of his patriarchal kingdom, now measuring it up for auction. This is no longer a family gathering, it is foreclosure. The law is arriving to claim, and Kody's dream is being repossessed. And here's the bitter twist of irony. The land that Christine and Janelle were denied the funds to build on will now be the very asset liquidated to pay them back. It's a brutal, poetic circle of justice. But things don't stop there. A forced sale of Kody's lots could ripple across the rest of the family. What about Robyn and Meri's shares? A partial sale would slash the overall value of the entire property. Who would want to buy a plot stuck in the middle of a fractured, feuding family? The vision of a united compound isn't just gone. It's being dismantled and sold piece by piece. The judgment doesn't just punish Kody. It taints the whole property for everyone. Which brings us to Meri Brown, the most enigmatic figure in this saga. She's long been portrayed as quietly suffering yet strangely loyal. But in the context of this lawsuit, her role becomes pivotal. Was she another unsuspecting victim of Kody's hidden finances, or did she have some idea of what was happening? Sources split into two camps. The first theory casts Meri as equally deceived. Like Christine and Janelle, she held on to the fantasy of the family pot. Her desperate clinging to Kody, her tolerance of neglect, could have been because she thought her financial future hung on remaining attached to him. If that is the case, then learning about the secret accounts would be a crushing betrayal. All the money she paid over from her LuLaRoe earnings, all the sacrifice for the family, was actually supporting the private lifestyle of Cody and Robyn. That would rewrite her story not simply as one of emotional abandonment, but of extended financial exploitation. And if that is true, could Meri sue too? Now that a precedent has been established, Cody might be facing a second court fight with his sole and initial legal wife. But there is another, much more sinister possibility. That theory is that Meri, being the initial and legal wife, might have had some knowledge of Cody's independent financial transactions. Not an entire knowledge, but sufficient to realize that he had money streams he didn't report to the others. In this variation, her silence wasn't a result of ignorance, but one of self-preservation. Maybe Cody tossed her little financial assurances, not nearly as substantial as Robyn's perks, but just enough to keep her anchored. Perhaps she thought that if she remained loyal and remained silent, she could maintain her own tenuous position in the family structure. If that is so, her later breakup with Cody has a different hue, not only emotional autonomy, but a strategic decision from someone who noticed the ship going down and decided to cling to a lifeboat before it struck the iceberg. The real story of Meri's involvement is one of the most disquieting unanswered questions of this drama. Is she the final victim of Cody's scam, or was she a more reserved, complex co-conspirator in this tale of lies and betrayal? And now we come to the mansion, the alleged castle of this failing kingdom, where Queen Robyn is confronted with a reality far from what she had anticipated. Throughout the trial, her defense was one of naivety, being a devoted wife who trusted her husband implicitly. But the facts spoke otherwise. The emails to her accountant, the texts to Cody, the business records signed by her all broke that picture. Robyn was not a bystander, she was co-pilot on this gravy train. And now that it has crashed, the backlash is hitting her as well. The $1.3 million verdict is technically against Cody. But in Arizona, which is a community property state, the distinction between a husband's and wife's finances is thin. The assets accrued during the marriage, and that includes the equity in their $1 million house, are available to pay the debt. Robyn's scrupulously guarded world, founded on secret bonuses and buffered from the family's financial woes, is on the verge of being breached. The bill is in, and both their names are signed. Insiders describe the mood within that mansion as changed. What once was presented as sweet romance has turned to acrid blame. The husband Robyn married, the patriarch who promised her a kingdom, turns out to have been an impostor. His financial empire lies in tatters. The stream of hidden money has reversed, and now it is flowing in the opposite direction to cover his lies. All the arguments in that house will be overshadowed by the burden of that $1.3 million. Cody, whose ego has always been thin-skinned, will not take responsibility. He'll play the role of victim of X. Wives jealous of his beauty and a court unfairly biased against him, and the woman closest to him, Robyn, will most likely bear the weight of his wrath. He will blame her spending lifestyle and consumer wants as the cause the secret account was drawn down to zero. The cause they no longer have money to pay the judgment. And Robyn, long armed with tears as her most powerful weapon, will find they have no leverage with banks or judges. She is now bound to a man who is a pariah in his family and a disgraced man in public opinion. The life she struggled to win. The monogamous marriage presented as a plural family has brought her not only the husband she desired, but his debts, his shame, and the jealousy of the women whose sacrifices underwrote her bliss. In becoming Cody's queen, she has become the sole monarch of a broke kingdom. But the repercussions do not end there. Another powerhouse involved in this soap opera cannot be overlooked. TLC, the network, benefited for years from the Browns' mess, cashing in on their suffering with ratings. But that is all changed now by this lawsuit. TLC's name appeared on the checks. Their executives negotiated the very contracts that the court deemed fraudulent. Legally, TLC would not be held accountable in this specific instance among the family members. But reputation-wise, the damage is widespread. Best case, they turned a blind eye to the financial abuse among their star family. Worse, they facilitated it by sanctioning Cody's secret riders and bonuses. They gave him the bullet and then televised the consequences as entertainment. The future of Sister Wives is literally hanging by a thread. How can the network continue to produce a show whose salient theme A family living plural marriage has been revealed to be an economic fiction. How can they resume filming Kody Brown when a court has determined that he intentionally cheated his partners and must pay over $1 million in restitution? For audiences, the image has changed forever. Kody is no longer simply the self-absorbed patriarch stumbling around family life. He is now a man who is legally required to pay a seven-figure amount for financial malfeasance. That type of stain doesn't come out in the wash. The public scrutiny of TLC is going to be immense. Viewers are going to be demanding explanation. They'll want the network to take responsibility for the injustice that occurred on their watch. It is quite likely that the show, at least in its present iteration, is done. But that doesn't necessarily mean the story itself is over. Actually, the brightest way for TLC, and insiders say one currently being discussed in backrooms, would be a radical change, an entire rebranding. An all-new series or season based not on Kody, but on the real stars of this story, Christine and Janelle. Imagine a spin-off titled Sister Wives, The Reckoning or Life After Kody. A show where the women finally get to spend the money they are owed, making strong, independent futures for themselves. A show about their friendship, their children, and their independence. That is a tale of courage, righteousness, and triumph over suffering. It would garner huge ratings and be the best revenge of all. To get a complete sense of just how far back this betrayal reaches, though, we have to go back. We have to watch critical scenes from previous Sister Wives seasons with this new perspective of financial betrayal. Because what we were actually witnessing wasn't simply a family feud, it was a crime occurring in slow motion, with the clues buried in plain sight. Consider, for instance, the transition from Las Vegas to Flagstaff. Kody sold it as a divine vision, an epiphany calling him to a simpler, cleaner existence. Christine, in particular, resisted vehemently. The children were healthy and happy. The wives had achieved an unusual sense of security with 4 houses end to end, a portrait of stability they'd never known before. Perhaps, though, there was another reason. Their finances were pretty straightforward. Mortgages, joint expenses, a system everyone knew. By relocating the family to Flagstaff, Kody disrupted that system, and in disruption, he saw opportunity. The disruption translated to rentals, land sales, and temporary housing. A climate where keeping secret the flow of money became much simpler. It was a shock, and a strategy meant to disorient the family as he gained increased control. And conveniently, those clandestine renewal bonuses based on the new plot could quietly swell his secret account. The calling wasn't religious at all. It was a business decision to open the path for the next phase of his financial independence from the family he was destined to helm. Then there is the raging argument about Robyn's initial Flagstaff home, purchase or lease. Kody was adamant that they needed to buy a large, costly piece of property for her immediately, even if it delayed the long-awaited promise of building on Coyote Pass. His rationale was the competitive rental market. Christine and Janelle were furious, though. Why should one wife have a permanent, luxurious residence while everyone else is housed in temporary, unstable dwellings? In retrospect, that wasn't simply a property dispute. It was Robyn and Kody employing their covert off-budget funds to acquire a personal property. The down payment quite possibly came from that secret bonus fund. Funds they couldn't possibly have taken from the family coffers. Christine and Janelle's intuitions were correct. They could feel the financial guidelines being stretched, that funds were appearing from sources they weren't supposed to access. All to go towards the already favored one wife. Which leads us to one of the most notorious viral moments of the entire series. The "what does the nanny do" moment. Christine's unvarnished outrage at Cody and Robyn bringing in a full-time nanny during the pandemic, when her own children were deprived of their father, resonated everywhere. On the surface level, it was a matter of hypocrisy and pandemic guidelines. But beneath, it was always about resources. Christine wasn't asking what the nanny did every day. What Christine was actually asking in that moment was, where's the money for this coming from? From her perspective, looking at the almost depleted family account, a full-time nanny didn't make sense. It was like a luxury they couldn't afford. How could a single wife justify a household staff member when the rest of them were allegedly skimping? The answer, painfully obvious now, is that the nanny wasn't an expense of the family at all. She was a private indulgence for Robyn and Kody, probably drawn from the secret account, another perk of their shadow economy.